Well, hello everyone and welcome to today's garden life. And boy, this is what it's all about. Driving to your favorite nursery with your top down on an absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous day. So I'm going to be doing some shopping for my own garden, but I'm also going to help point out to you some of the best tough as nails perennials that you can plant in your garden. Great for new gardeners, great for experienced gardeners, and great for people who live in tough to grow climates like Oklahoma. So what do you say, Stuart?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, this is my kind of day. So it is beautiful out. It is breezy, but not too windy. I am at one of my favorite places on earth. I am at Brick's Garden Center with my buddy Jen.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah,
Linda.
it's fun. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to do some styling with some existing plants that I've got in my garden, namely a Southern Living plant. But then I'm also going to be looking around for just some really, really tough plants for when it gets hotter later in the season. So if you guys come to Brick's, make sure to ask for Jen. She is all-knowing.
I wouldn't say that.
No, I was asking you girls how many steps you probably already had in today, because they've been putting out perennials and annuals. Okay, I love this.
Right now, we already have 12,000 steps.
Oh my gosh, and it is probably around noon.
Yeah.
I feel inferior already. I feel like I need to get moving.
We get about 48,000 a day.
Oh
more.
my
Yeah.
gosh, that is incredible. Well, there you go. That is indicative of just how many plants she's putting
Yes.
out. So, okay, well, we will visit later. Thank
Okay.
you, darling.
Yes, thank
okay,
you.
Okay, bye. Okay, my plant number one is Gara. This is an absolutely wonderful plant. I find that it does especially well if you plant it on something of a slope, because it really wants good drainage and it doesn't want to be overwatered. Here at Brick's, they have so many different varieties. I really love this purple foliage. I also love the variegated, but they've got it flowering in pink. They've got it flowering in white.
All the way down there.
Yes, some of it is shorter, some of it is taller, so just look for the profile of this indispensable plant that you need in your garden. This right here is Whiskers Deep Rose Gara.
Yep.
And it practically all requires very little water once it's established, but it really likes direct full sun, making it perfect for my front border at the cottage. Okay, the next number two indispensable plant is, drum roll please, pentstemon. Now there are very many different varieties of this that you can grow. I personally grow the Husker Red, which is a traditional old-fashioned pentstemon. It does brilliantly in my garden. I love this gorgeous purple foliage. This one in particular is called Onyx and Pearls. But they have different varieties here, and you just get whatever variety will fit into your garden environment best, depending on its color, depending on its height, whatever you need to fill a basic design void in your garden. So that would be my number two. It likes full sun. It is really tough. I like to pinch it back at the beginning of spring so that it becomes full, grows in great big clumps, and well, what's not to love? So there is number two, pentstemon, or do you say pentstemon? What's your preference? Well, here is another tough as nails, you just can't defeat it perennial for your garden. This is Tickseed Coreopsis. This one is Uptick Gold and Bronze, though there are very many different varieties now that are bred at different heights. You'll see some here that is smaller, a little bit daintier in your garden. So again, just whatever your profile is looking for, the plant profile you are looking for, then go after that. Tip, anything that says Nana on it is probably going to be a low grower and a little daintier in your garden. Now, one thing about the tick seed is it typically, when you find it, it will be in hues of varying degrees of intensity of yellow, sometimes some burgundy. They may be messing a little bit with some of the other hybridized varieties, but definitely it is tough as nails. I do find that even though it takes full sun, it demands pretty good drainage. I have had some succumb to an attack of roly-polies before, so don't overwater it. Give it full sun, good drainage, and it will be happy all the way from late spring blooming into fall, where it is also fabulous in a fall garden. Now, if you want to play with the softer colors, the more English colors in your crayon box, then definitely look no further than growing catmint or nepeta or nepeta, depending on how you roll. This variety is Persian blue, though there are a number of different varieties available. I love all of it. I not only love the sweet, sweet flowers, which are abundant throughout the growing season. It does benefit from cutting back and deadheading it when necessary. Watch out for spider mite, but if you give it really good air circulation in full sun and you keep an eye on it, it shouldn't be a problem. It especially looks good in any kind of environment where it will spill over the edge and really give you that lovely cascading effect with these lavender blooms that kind of have a cloud-like quality to them. So I love this. This is a great companion plant for roses, for anything that's gold in your garden, and it's just lovely. It also, I think, really sings with pale pinks and even darker pinks, and anything that is also of that kind of blue-gray hue in your garden. So there you go. Look no further than catmint. Okay, and number 5, you guys are familiar with it. I am very, very familiar with it, and that is Salvia. In my case, I have just tons of this beautiful East Friesland Salvia. You can get it here at Bricks. But don't be restricted to just this purple color, because there are other varieties that are available as well. It is in white. There are shades of kind of like a fuchsia pink. Just really look and see what they've got available and what can fill that niche in your garden. I have found that it can handle full sun. It is drought tolerant. Once it gets established, it will go to seed in a lovely way, not in an obnoxious way. And it is just so dramatic. In the late spring garden, actually for us even early spring, all the way until first frost, just make sure to keep it deadheaded. It also makes a great cut flower, and I happen to love the fragrance of it, as do pollinators. And the Oklahoma State flower, I believe, is Gaillardia, the blanket flower perennial. Yes, this happens to be spin top copper sun. This again is beautiful, I think, because it is indigenous to the prairie and will look beautiful planted with some of that Goldsturm rudbeckia. Yes, maybe some purple coneflower. It is tough as nails. Also, it blooms very, very prolifically. Do not overwater it. Give it pretty good drainage. It likes kind of rocky soil. Give it very, very good drainage. Plant it with some dark burgundy companions. That would be absolutely beautiful. Maybe some of that purple-leaved penstemon. That would be a great combo. It looks natural in your garden. I think it's very suitable to modern, contemporary type of environments, or, as I said, kind of prairie style plantings. It is beautiful. I do think it requires some grooming. It can look pretty tattered at the end of the summer, so make sure that you pay attention to it from that perspective. Other than that, leave it alone. It will bloom beautifully, and you will be successful as a new gardener or as an experienced one. Okay, this is a great garden design tip when you are styling around a specific plant. And you guys know how much I love golden plants or chartreuse plants. In this case, I am going to try a touch of gold holly. This is a southern living plant, 2 feet high by 4 feet wide. I have an idea where I'm going to plant it in the garden. But whenever I am trying to style something in general and I really want to come up with a beautiful combo of plants and I guess some ideas for a beautiful color vignette, here's the tip. Bring your plant with you, or at least a sampling of the plant if you are bringing more than one. So I've got this touch of gold, and emblematic of the fact that I just love yellow and lavender, yellow and purple, and yellow with those colors that are really, really tough. I've brought my plants and now I'm looking at different options to stage around it. Now when I come, I seldom ever have specific plants on my list. That it doesn't matter if I'm coming here to Bricks or if I'm going to, Lowe's or Home Depot or TLC or wherever. I don't come with a specific plant list in mind. What I come with is an idea of what I want the overall effect to be, and more specifically, what color palette I want to use. So I brought my guy here. They have lent me a table, and I'm going to set it up with some different options that I will use. And option number one, partly because this is new to me, and here's the other tip. I don't need a whole flat of this beautiful vervain, but if I want to get an idea of what it will later look like in my garden when things grow out and they are profuse and they are mature, then I take a flat and I set it beside it, because that gives me a little bit better idea of what it will look after things have grown for a while. So the first thing on my list is going to be this vervain. I haven't grown it before. To me, it really just looks like lavender verbena, and it can handle full sun. So I'm going to try this, and also I'm going to try some of this, I think, in my window box this year. So that would be my number one plant. I didn't look for it specifically, but I've got it here, and I know it's tough. I happen to know it's tough. Okay, my next option as I fill things out. I think this is probably one of the daintiest flowers there is. This is Scabiosa, or the pincushion flower. And I have a friend who, she used this as her signature flower because she could grow it so well. And I think it's really beautiful. Now, in my experience, it can grow in a container or it can grow in the garden itself, but in my experience, what it needs is afternoon shade, just like practically everything in Oklahoma, but this in particular. And you also don't want to overwater it. So this is the pincushion flower. This happens to be butterfly blue. It shows full sun, but again, I like to give it some shade in the afternoon. I also find that it doesn't like to get too dry, but it doesn't like to get overly wet. So if possible, make sure you give it good drainage. So that is my next option. And yeah, I think it looks good with it. It repeats the lavender in the vervain, but look at how pretty that combo is. I just think that's really, really lovely. Now, another thing about Touch of Gold Holly, the more sun it's in, the yellower and the more golden it becomes. If it's in part shade, it might get a little variegated, and if it's in deep shade, which I really don't recommend, it will begin to revert to green. So I'm gonna have it in that part sun, part shade environment, which also happens to be where the Scabiosa likes to be. So let's move on to something that already exists in my garden that you all have seen in abundance, and that is this salvia. You guys have asked me what variety it is. This is East Friesland. If you can't find it, I also like May Night. It goes to seed pretty well, and I think it's really a great investment plant. And I love this tone-on-tone thing. I love the deeper hues of the spires of this salvia and how beautiful it looks with that lavender in the pincushion. Kind of tone on tone, but varying degrees of intensity of that purple hue, and all of it looks great with this Touch of Gold Holly. And this is something I have grown in a different color before, but this year I am going to try it in this fabulous purple, not only because the color scheme really matches the groove that I've got going up front, but also because it gives a slightly different hue of that purple, and because this loves full sun. And the other thing to commend it is pollinators adore it. This will get large, and over time it will almost look like a small bush. I can grow it in an area that is prone to drought almost, because it likes kind of dry conditions, and it will be great in my south-facing garden. So I'm going to add this to my composition here. Let me move my water bottle out of the way. And by the way, when you guys go plant shopping, always bring water with you, because it will heat up before you know it. And then lastly, nothing is tougher, I think, than catmint. Now, some people call it nepeta, nepata. That's my question of the day. How do you pronounce it? Pronunciation seems to be a big thing with people. But this is a beautiful lavender hue. I love the fact that it's got gray-green leaves that have some texture to it. It is wonderful spilling out over an edge, so the applications are many. It can handle dry conditions. I've got some growing up the street in my public park, but again, it's that beautiful tone on tone, but a different texture and a different matte versus glossy effect from the leaves. So that's another color combo that I would add there. If you were doing a container planting of this, I would recommend getting a really large planter and trying to stuff all of this in here. I am probably going to be using most of these things in the ground or in my window box. So there is a garden design tip for you. Bring your plant, whatever it is. In this case, it's this beautiful touch of gold holly, and style around it. Take it with you, and then you will see from whatever is available what your options are without having to really be a slave to that plant list. This is another tried and true, tough as nails, bulletproof perennial. Can I say any more to describe its toughness? No, I cannot. And this is Blackeyed Susan, in particular the variety Goldsturm Rudbeckia. Now, it looks pretty tame right now, but I promise you, give it some heat, give it some sun, and then really just ignore it, and you will have wave after wave after wave of beautiful Blackeyed Susans in the let's say midsummer to late summer. If you deadhead it, you'll also get some rebloom on it going into fall. It is tough as nails. Now, it will also reseed, and pretty prolifically. I find almost a little bit too much. I do think it is beautiful when planted with really billowy grasses. They kind of look like kind of like a miniature prairie. So give it room to roam, give it a big landscape that kind of evokes the qualities of an Oklahoma prairie. But it is tough as nails, you guys. You can use it in the front yard situation or a backyard situation. Just keep it trimmed, looking tidy, deadheaded. Also makes a brilliant cut flower. Okay, you guys know how I love gray in the garden, particularly in my backyard. Boy, this is an oldie but goodie. Powys Castle Artemisia, aka Wormwood. I find that if you treat it well, it will reward you. Now, that doesn't mean it is high maintenance. It is not. It is very, very easy to grow, but it can get out of hand scale-wise. It can get a little bit woody. You want to make sure that periodically you really give it a good trim. Now, because it can get a little bit overgrown, a little bit unruly, and if you don't cut it back periodically, it can go woody. I like to periodically, if not frequently, pinch it back. That keeps it lower. It keeps it at, I think, a more attractive height. It really makes it bush out with all of this ferny delicacy, which I think is just beautiful in the garden, especially with lavenders and blues and purples. However, I might add that it looks great with deep reds, deep pinks. It is really just a wonderful canvas upon which almost any color palette can play. I also like it because it's named after Pest Castle, that very famous place that I visited in Ireland. So talk about a traditional, old-fashioned, but very reliable perennial, and that is Wormwood or Pest Castle Artemisia. And lastly, one that I have grown in my garden in the past, I don't have it now, but I plan to, and that is this beautiful Salvia Gregory. It is listed as a small evergreen shrub if you give it hot, sunny, low water conditions, and that's exactly what I have. I plan on growing it, I think, on one of the slopes on the lower terrace. That will be a perfect environment for it. This stuff is tough, and it is much beloved not only by gardeners like myself, but also by pollinators. Now, you traditionally see it in kind of a red color. This is Furman's red salvia right here. But I am planting some of this really deep and beautiful purple right here. I think it's going to be spectacular, especially once it matures and it really does take on that small shrub form. So if you want to attract spectators and pollinators to your garden, then I highly recommend this bulletproof perennial. Sometimes it's as important to know what not to plant as what to plant, and here is something that I will never again plant in my garden because I have wasted more money on it than almost any perennial, and that is Delphinium. Now, they have some beautiful Delphinium here. I get seduced by it every year. Maybe you are one of the lucky people that has a microclimate that can be successful with it, but I have not, and like I say, I just do not have good experience with it. It just gets too hot, too fast, and it doesn't do well. It's this variety, and there are many varieties. Now, what I do plant that is a doppelganger to it, though kind of in the same family, that performs much better for me, and that is just simple larkspur that comes up from seed. I seed it every year. It has those beautiful purple, pink, or white spires that come up, and that's what I have found is successful for me. So, according to my book anyway, I would not try putting Delphinium in your garden in Oklahoma. If you live in Maine, someplace in New England, or somewhere where the climate is much more amenable to it, then by all means grow it. I'm just speaking from my Okie perspective. But wait, I'm sure you guys are saying, but Linda, you have forgotten one of the most indispensable, easy perennials of them all, great as a cut flower, beautiful in the garden, and that is Echinacea, sometimes found in your medicine cabinet. They have beautiful varieties here. Some of it is in white, some of it is in the classic pink. This is the standard Echinacea purpurea. I have some of this in my garden. But boy, I really like the white as well. I have also seen it in shades of kind of an apricot color and orange. And even though that performs, I'm not sure that it performs quite as well. I tend to like to stick with the classics. But you do you, I'll do me. But I promise you, you plant any of these things, with the exception of the Delphinium, and you will experience great success in your garden endeavors.